Welcome to the Gentleman Project Podcast. I'm Cory Moore.
And I'm Kirk Chugg. We're privileged today to have Chad Hymas with us. Chad is a speaker and an author internationally known. He's one of the youngest ever to receive the Council of Peers Award for Excellence and to be inducted into the National Speaker Hall of Fame. Both Cory and I have heard Chad speak, and if you've ever heard Chad speak, you don't forget the message that Chad delivers. He speaks on mastering change, leadership, building teams, excellent customer service, and overall, just a positive outlook on life. I'd love to have Chad tell his story so that our listeners can kind of get a background on Chad, his life, and what has made Chad so powerful in the industry that he's in. And we just want to welcome Chad Hymas to the podcast this morning. Welcome, Chad.
Thanks, Kirk. Cory, appreciate you having me.
Just this last week, you had a big anniversary of something that changed your life forever. 20 years ago, you had something happen that kind of changed the direction of your life. Would you share that story with the people that don't know who you are?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, we just celebrated 20 years. It's been 2 decades. 21 years ago, Shondell and I had recently been married, I guess, for just a few years. And we moved out into the country to build the dream of a ranch. It was April 3rd, 2001, when I got that phone call while I was at work to get my butt home because something exciting had happened. And that was our youngest child, our youngest of 2, had just taken his first 2 steps. And so that's a big deal to me and our family, not just the first steps, but whenever I come home, we have this tradition as father and sons, and I had 2 boys, and even mom gets involved. And that is we play ball. I mean, I used to sit on the couch when I was a kid and watch outside my window and wait to see my dad's blue Toyota truck pull up the driveway every day. And as soon as I saw that pull up, I knew it was basketball time. My dad would come in, mom would put dinner on hold, and we would go out. When I was a little kid, we'd go out in the garage because he had this little hoop set up for us. And then as I got older, we'd move to a 10-foot hoop, and he'd build a 10-foot hoop out there in the out on the driveway and built a basketball court. So I had that same thing going with my kids. I had a small little hoop in the garage, so it wasn't just the first steps. It was, hey, now we can start playing with this other kid and get him to start shooting some foul shots. And so in my angst to get home, I stopped by the farm first because that's our passion and dream with a family is to raise animals on a farm. And I got on a tractor and I loaded up a bale of hay that weighs more than most SUVs, and I wasn't really focused on the task at hand. And long story short, I skipped a pre-op. It'd be like one of our listeners driving their car on an empty tank of gas. That's what skipping a pre-op is. Sometimes you ignore what the obvious is. And I ignored the mistake on my tractor. I saw a red light flashing telling me that my hydraulic tank was low. And I chose to ignore that light because I wanted to go home to play ball with this little boy and his older brother by 2 years. And the hydraulics failed because I ignored the warning light. Bale of hay rolled over backwards, landed on my head, punched it through the steering wheel. The shaft went through my mouth, breaking everything in its path. And that's when I got to live through that. And that's when my new life was to begin. I was rendered a quadriplegic. So we just, as you said, celebrated. And that's probably a good way to put it, because if I look at it any other way than a celebration, I will be depressed, suicidal, and I'm not happy and successful doing that. So it has been a celebration that I got to live. And for the last 20 years, I've been numb in all 4 limbs. I do travel in a manual wheelchair. I use my shoulders as my muscle for that, but my hands are numb. My forearms are numb. My midsection is numb. Stomach is numb. 2 out of my 3 chest muscles are gone. I do have the diaphragm, so I don't have to breathe through trach. And obviously I lost my legs and I lost my feet. So I think that's the anniversary that you're referring to. But I did celebrate my wedding anniversary too. So, you can kind of pick and choose, but yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Chad. You tell the world as you travel about what that experience taught you and what it taught you about life and how to look at life. Talk to us about what you tell those that you speak with about what that taught you about how to look at the world.
It's taught me, Cory, a lot. Way too much for, an hour, 2, 3, 4 hour podcast or learning session. So what I've done with everything that I've learned is I've I've libraried it out and segmented it into different topics. You named them when you started off. Some are leadership, some are safety, some have to do with family, some have to deal with going through adversity, adapting to change, team building, communication skills, customer service. You talked about a few of those when you opened up, and taught is a past tense word. I'm still learning. And I want to make that clear. I think it's important to our listeners that we all understand that we go through these challenges, these pandemics, these times of crisis. And I realize that many of our listeners probably have not gone through a pandemic where they have broken their neck and found themselves paralyzed on a desert floor. But every one of you that are listening right now have certainly experienced loss in the last 14 months, loss of freedom, loss of the ability to go to a high school basketball game and not have to wear a mask, loss of going to, having the freedom to go to a restaurant of your choosing, just gathering with family. We have been, loss of travel overseas, going where you want to go, doing what you want to do. In fact, I've met people that have full function of all their limbs that are more trapped than I'll ever be in my lifetime. And I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just saying that people that refuse to adapt to changes that take place in our world will find themselves trapped in their own patterns. If I have people that refuse to adapt to something that we're calling COVID, and that means wearing a mask and maybe even getting a vaccination, and I'm not telling you all what to do, I'm just saying that, but if I have people that are refusing to adapt to that, we're going to find ourselves in a great deal of hurt. It's not about right or wrong or left or right or, Republican or Democrat. It's just, hey, what can you do to help other people be more safe? And if that's wearing a mask, if that's canceling an activity that has to do with your family, where everybody's getting together, then that's what it is. So I'm not here to talk. I'm not an expert on that. I'm just saying that if I was not willing to adapt to my pandemic and change the kind of clothes that I wear, I'd be naked for this podcast. You guys probably wouldn't like that very much. If I wasn't willing to change the kind of food that I eat, I wouldn't be able to travel the world alone. I need to keep my weight at a certain weight limit because other people, frankly, lift me up. I don't travel with anybody else. Then I get into an Uber vehicle. A stranger helps me. I don't know who's going to help me next. And so I just think there's, adaptation is one. I'm learning how to be married. I know that sounds weird, even though we just celebrated 30 years together and 26 of those, married. But for most of that time, especially after the accident and even prior to the accident, I've been gone by choice. I think when we get married, we say for better or for worse or something like that. Nobody plans on the love of their life helping them shower. I know it sounds like fun, gentlemen. It's not fun. There's no fun in being needy to your spouse. So I have really, as I've been stuck at home the last 14 months, I've had to learn how to be a gentleman. And I have not mastered that, but I am getting better. I can't tell you that. I don't know that I'll ever master that. But I really struggle with that because I don't mind having one of you guys help me. I'm not married to you. I love you guys. I'm just not in love. Does that make sense? They're different, right? Those are different things. Shondell, she helps me with a lot of things. She's not quick to anger. She's quick to forgive. Her love language is service. Mine is not. I like to serve people. Don't get me wrong. But Shondell says if she can't serve me in her own home, what good does that do to go serve other people out in the neighborhood or out in the community where we live? And so, my fingers don't work. They don't cut up food and I need help. When I'm in a hotel, I just dial 0 and I have the bellman bring me up some Gatorade and some fries and ketchup. It's easy. It's easy. I thank him. He's on his way. I don't see him again, and a guy walking out of the hotel. Hey, my name's Chad, Cory. Can you help me get loaded up in this Uber? Man, thanks a lot, buddy. I really appreciate your kindness. Thanks for getting me loaded up. And that's it. And we'll see each other again in the next life. And I'll probably give you a big hug for helping me out that day and wherever. That's kind of how I see it. My wife is young. She has a bad back. She's gorgeous. I know exactly why she has a bad back. She'll never tell you why she has a bad back. I know why she has a bad back. She refuses to, and she still helps me. And she would break her back over and over again for me. And so I'm learning how to be a true gentleman, which is to have gratitude and realize that other people benefit from you allowing them to serve you. And I know that to be true. I just never thought it would be my spouse, So I'm learning from that.
That's a powerful theme that's come up again and again, Chad, is allowing others the opportunity for the blessing of serving others. And when we're the one who is the recipient of that, that's hard sometimes to accept that. But if we constantly defer that and say, I'm okay, I can handle this myself, we deny them that blessing of serving us.
It's true.
And that's really where the best relationships stem from, is when you've been in a difficult situation, maybe even in an embarrassing one, and someone has stepped up and said, hey, I see the situation that you're in, and it's okay. We're going to get through this together. And I remember when I listened to you talk the first time, you talked about heroes. And from that stage, I remember you talking about the number of heroes that you've seen show up in your life. I can't remember how you put it. You said, I don't plan them. They just happen.
Yeah, I don't know who the heroes are that are going to be at the airport. I fly out on Wednesday to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm going to meet some heroes that day. I haven't met them yet. I mean, my office doesn't call up the airport and pre-plan, hey, there's a guy coming in a wheelchair, be there waiting. Never happens that way, ever. When I get to the hotel at midnight, I don't know who I'm going to meet, but I will meet somebody. It always happens. And it's happened that way for 20 plus years, almost 21 years, and sometimes I have to be patient and wait, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but I will size up and find that person and I try and find a male, not because I'm a sexist. I just don't want to put a female in that kind of a spot. I don't like to put my wife in that spot to help me transfer or to help carry bags. I call it respect, but others might not. It's not. I'm not trying to demean the female gender. I don't want to. I don't want to have a female say, "Hey, I need you to." It's just something with my inner me that maybe. But I will say this: I have had a lot of females help me. Hey, do you need help, sir? Sure, thank you. And it's very humbling. It's very, very humbling. But they're grateful to do it. They're grateful to do it.
Chad, I've learned things from you in the past about how to see the world a little bit differently, about some leadership principles. I want to ask you to teach me a little bit about how you've parented. How has your vision of the world affected your boys? What kind of things do you hope to teach them, or have you tried to teach them? And what kind of things do you try to impart to them from your mind to theirs about life and maybe being a gentleman?
Let's talk about vision for a second. And so the boys were 3 and 1 when I got hurt. So let's put that in perspective. They were just tiny, 3 and 1. Remember, the 1-year-old just took his first 2 steps. They're now 23 and 21. There's a gap. And we adopted 2 more children. We adopted a little girl from Guatemala who's now a junior in high school. We got her when she was 3 days old. And we adopted a little boy a few years back. We got him when he was 8 from Ethiopia. Beautiful, dark little boy. He's now 12. So we had him for 4 years.
That's fantastic.
So let's talk about vision for a second. You guys know that I'm 4'2" and that I'm sitting in a wheelchair. Whenever I meet somebody, a normal sized person, high school kid, middle school kid, adult, where am I looking?
Up.
Or at their belt buckle or thereabouts. We'll just keep this professional. My kids, the one boy, just within the 5 minutes before we started our podcast, he came home for the weekend from college. He had a long weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he's off college, so he came home. And he came out here to the office to say goodbye. And he dropped to both knees. The kid's 21 years old. All my kids drop. I've never asked them to drop. They're not required to drop. They just drop. What's that mean for our listeners? I think we rob our kids from standing above them physically. I think we learn a lot by sitting by them at the table while they do their homework. Even though we don't understand the math or the history, we don't have to. There's a lot that happens in being a father when you drop to their level. And my kids have done that their entire life. as they even got taller than me. They wanted to drop for family photos. I'm gonna sit by dad. So they drop to a knee. They're on each side of me, and mom's standing above me behind, and the two littler kids do that as well. They drop right to my level. I think there's a lot to be said about dropping. So don't try and walk in other shoes or try and understand. Sometimes just listening and being a part, engagement is a big part of parenting, being a great father, just being there. Spring is just, is right in front of us right now. Spring 2021, coming out of a huge crisis. What would it look like for some of our fathers that are listening to go home tonight from work, grab some ice cream on the way home and serve it up before mom serves them dinner? You'll have to deal with mom later, and you can do that. But how often is that? And we laugh at that a little bit, but how often has that happened? I bet you the gentleman listening on this podcast could probably count on one hand, probably one finger. Probably never happened before. One thing's for certain, they're going to have to explain to mom why. And the answer goes something like this. Well, I don't know. I need the kids to know that I think about them during work. And it's not about ice cream or the bananas or the chocolate syrup or the caramel. I just want to go sit on the front lawn on this nice sunny evening as the sun goes down, have some ice cream. We'll have dinner after. I just want them to remember how much they mean to our family. The next time those kids are faced with depression or suicidal thoughts or sad because band's been canceled for the year or cheerleading's been canceled or whatever's happened because of COVID, whatever depression or suicidal thoughts, and we can't be naive to think that they're not going through that. Don't do that. The next time they're faced with that, they're going to know that dad's looking up to them. And that's the ammunition they use to fight that back with. The kid will forget what you say during the ice cream Sunday activity. They'll forget. They'll never forget that dad did that. That'll be talked about for generations to come. It might be something as simple as a text that sounds like this. Hey, this is dad. Just wrapped up a podcast with a couple of guys talking about families and kids and how to be a good dad. I don't know if I answered their questions right. I just want you boys to know you've taught me how to be a better dad. Hope you guys are having a great day at college. Thanks for all you teach me every day of my life. Bye. That's it. Send the text off. That goes for everybody listening. Just send that text off. That will impact them, and they'll save that sucker forever. It gives them value. It doesn't belittle. It increases their confidence. It increases the reason, their value for wanting to live and to fight through some of the adversity and challenges that they face. The lack of opportunities that exist now in colleges or schools because, we're still going through this crisis and there's going to be more in their lives. It might not even be called COVID. They're going to go through ups and downs. They fight through that because of the value that we give them. That's the value of vision and being on their level. And I think that's a huge leadership lesson for each of us to learn.
You need to go back about 5 minutes, start and listen to that part of the podcast again, folks. Those little simple things that we do for our families, those are those sticky moments that we talk about that won't be forgotten. You had a vision to run a huge elk ranch. I want you to kind of tell the story about how your vision, your original vision of that ranch and what you saw that. You knew to the detail of what you wanted that ranch to be and look like. And then after the accident, how did you continue with that vision?
I've always wanted to be a farmer. Farmers come in many different varieties. Some farm alfalfa, some farm cattle. Some farm horses, whatever it is for you. Some farm corn, soybeans. I wanted to farm elk. And so Shondell and I moved out here to do that. And I was injured after that took place. And there were several hundred head of elk out here. And now Shondell's dealing with a quadriplegic husband, 2 little boys that are 3 and 1, and a bunch of animals out there. And so the truth is, Shondell didn't do that. The people of Rush Valley did that. We live in a wonderful community where people from all around for several months came out in their own tractors, fed the animals, watered them, took care of them, brought meals over. And they took care of that. And I was in a very, very bad place back then because I still had this, I was trying to figure out how to live if I wanted to live. Well, and you have to prioritize, what's next? Am I going to be married? Is she going to want to stick by my side? I mean, my body's changed. We can't have any more children. I can't even feed myself. I can't get myself dressed. The bathroom experience, that's all changing. it's almost overwhelming when you think about it all at once. How do you teach the kids how to play ball now? They deserve a dad that can teach them. I'm not that dad anymore. I mean, all of these thoughts, I'm not saying that I'm right in those thoughts. I'm just saying those are, whether they're natural or unnatural, those are the thoughts that I had. And through a process of the people that I was surrounded by, I realized that I didn't have to farm 200 head of elk to be a farmer. Because since that time, and through the help and the coaching and the friendships that never did leave my side, even when I was going through some very bad mental moments, miracles happened. And the farm has increased from 40 or 50 acres here in Rush Valley to 89 countries. That's a big farm. And all 7 continents. That's as many as God put on this earth. I'm not saying that to brag. I just never thought that a farm that I was growing could be that exponential. I mean, I never thought it could grow to be that big. I think sometimes we look at our inner lives and we think too small, and we think inside of our neighborhoods and inside of our homes. And while that's a great place to start and to create dreams and to set goals, we limit ourselves to that. And I think we're robbing our kids and we're robbing ourselves. And most importantly, we're robbing other people of things that we can teach them, principles, values that we can share, especially in an era we have technology at our fingertips where we can share valuable information or stories, and everybody has a story, to share that on social media, not because you're trying to get a lot of likes, you're trying to help somebody better their lives as well. And so that's the purpose of this podcast. That's why you guys are doing this podcast right now. You're not doing it for yourselves. You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you want to better the lives of other people. There's nothing more valuable in life than that right there. Before my accident, I was looking for a way to farm and make money. Since my accident, I've tried to find a way to contribute to the world, and the money just kind of takes care of itself and pays the bills, right? So I think that's probably why you're doing this podcast.
You're right, Chad. And I appreciate being able to follow you. You're one of those people on social media that when I get on social media and I see what you post, I think maybe it was worth getting on Facebook today, because just the conciseness of the messages that you deliver are just like, that's what I needed to hear today. It was about gratitude, and I need to be more gracious. So if anybody's out there that's not following Chad, get on your social media platforms and find Chad Hymas and follow him, because it will be a blessing in your life, because there's positive and there's negative on social media, and Chad represents the positive that's on there.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We do want to make sure that our messages are positive. We don't want to, we're not trying to put anything that's argumentative. There's plenty of that out there. And it doesn't mean that people always agree with what I post, and I'm okay with that. I'm not, I'm fine with that. I'm just sharing things that have worked for me. But I agree with you. There's a lot of negative out there. We're here to try and really boost the positive and help people grow. Same thing you guys are doing. It's a great work to be involved in. It's a marvelous work.
So, Chad, I have to ask you, I didn't know about your 2 adopted kids, which is fantastic. Where did that decision come from? What drove that decision? And give people kind of a sense of why you did that.
I didn't. I was fine with the boys. Thought, the boys were good, empty nest sooner than later, right? And I was fine with just the 2 boys. My wife is the one that came to me and said, our family is not complete. And I didn't know what she was thinking, because, from everything we were told in the doctor's office and from my circumstance where I broke my neck, my body doesn't work the way that it used to. And so having kids the way that we used to have kids would be impossible. And I didn't know there was another way to have kids. I only knew there was one way to have kids. And frankly, if I can be honest, I kind of liked that way. And so I wasn't really, I didn't know that there was another way to have kids. And my wife said, let's go find someone to serve. Now you know how I got a daughter. We found a 16-year-old girl in Guatemala who needed help. And she asked us to take care of her daughter. And so through the legal channels and all the proper procedures, we were able to bring Gracie to America from Guatemala. My wife went to Ethiopia and found a little boy that had been in an orphanage for much of his life. He was 8. She wasn't there looking for an 8-year-old boy, but she found him, and she felt impressed that he was to be part of our family. And I don't know how I felt about that, but now I know exactly how I thought. This kid's incredible. This little boy, all my kids are incredible. I really am grateful for this kid. He's like his mother, like his adoptive mother. He's service oriented. He doesn't leave me alone. Dad, I got you covered, Dad. Dad, I'm going to lay by you by bed. Dad, I'm going to cut up your fish. Dad, I'm going to cut up your spaghetti. Dad, I got it. Dad, he just, I don't know, and all the kids had that a little bit in them, but Caleb, he's very, very big hearted. He's the only dark kid that lives in our area. He's the only dark kid in his school. He knew absolutely no English, never had loving parents per se. I shouldn't say loving parents. They probably did love him. They just knew that they couldn't take care of him. So they had to give him up. So I don't want to judge that. When I meet his parents, and one day I will, both my adoptive kids, I got two things to say to them. Thank you. Thank you for letting me raise you. It's been an honor. Meet them. I mean, this is your genes. Look how beautiful they are. That's you. That's not me. That's you as parents. That they have your genes. We just got to raise them, and they taught us more. So thank you for giving us that opportunity to learn from them. So these kids are incredible. So yeah, we have the two boys are older. They're gone. The two younger ones are at home, and what an empty place it would be without them, for sure. I thought an empty nest sooner than later would be great. Heavens, Caleb's been my saving grace. Gracie's been my saving grace. And so those kids are incredible.
We talk often on the podcast about what we're trying to teach our kids, but you just mentioned how much they've taught you. And I think that's true for all parents, that their children teach them. What are some of the things that you feel like your kids have taught you?
So the first couple months of the pandemic, April, May, I was struggling. I mean, I was home, I was in the office, I was seeing Shondell every night. And you have to understand, well, that seems normal for most. For 20 years prior to that, I was in a hotel room for 26 to 27 days a month. My drug of choice was a Marriott or a Hilton. The boys came to the house one day, the older boys. Dad, we're going to go for a ride on the ranch. Would you like to go with us? And so they loaded me up, threw me in the truck, and I sat shotgun, and they were sitting there with me. And we ended up stopping at the base, looking over and seeing the elk. And it wasn't about that at all. Here was the message that I got that day. And it was it was done right. It was done well thought out. Dad, we noticed that Mom's been kind of sad lately, Dad. Mom's never been sad, Dad. Is everything okay? I said, oh yeah, everything's great. Dad, why won't you let her help you, Dad? Well, I know it's hard for you guys to understand. And no, Dad, it's not really hard to understand. We get it. We think we don't understand your shoes. We don't understand. We're not paralyzed, but we understand why. But Dad, you've always taught people in your presentations that it's not about you anyway. So now my boys are asking me to live what I teach in my presentations. Dad, we've seen you speak 1,000 times, Dad. You're always telling people it's not about them. And now maybe this is a chance for you to live it and try it, Dad. But Dad, no matter what you decide, we love you no matter what. But we just don't like seeing Mom cry, Dad. Dad, we know you don't want her to cry. We just want you to know we're here for you, Dad. And so that's been huge. That's been huge. If you want me to really listen, have me listen to a kid. Put my own kid in the mix, you got my attention. Because I just think they're so much wiser than me, and they see things, and they see them deep, and they're not playing on the surface. They're digging in the weeds. And when they dig in the weeds, there's nothing I can hide. I mean, there's no hiding any information. They know everything there is to know. While they're not paralyzed, they do understand the concept behind it, but it's not an excuse to not be grateful. It's not an excuse. Likewise, as much as COVID has taken away from us, it's not an excuse to be depressed or to not find the positive that it's teaching us, or to not go out and serve other people or adapt to change. It's not an excuse at all. There's a lot that it has taught us. And something tells me when this sucker opens back up, you watch. Churches are going to be full. Basketball games, the getting together, the family reunions, people will show up that never showed up before. Because sometimes we have to lose something big in order to realize the sacredness or importance of it. Kind of like me. I lost my hands and lost my body and the use of it. And now it's kind of sacred to me. And I can't wait to be able to feel her touch again on my hand. I hold her hand all the time. I just don't feel it. And so, that'll happen again one day. I just don't know when, but I'm not going to wait for it to happen. There's too much to grow on now. And I don't have time in my 24-hour day to keep learning what I have to learn. So that's just one piece of the puzzle right there.
What an incredible symbiotic relationship that you have with your kids, because I can guarantee you that they wouldn't be that type of kid, I guess they're men now, if they hadn't had an example of somebody like that in their life. So like you've given to them, now they're giving back to you. What an incredible story. Something that should definitely be written down in some family history for the Hymas family.
Oh, it is. Trust me, it's on video. Yeah, it's captured.
That's awesome.
I need my posterity to understand, what grandpa and great grandpa or great great grandpa, not what he went through, but what, not everything was lush, but what helped him to be better father and maybe even a better husband, and to keep doing that throughout his entire life, because they're going to go through challenges. I don't know exactly what those are, but they're going to have them for sure. And I want them to be able to see some of the principles that have helped me to take an experience of a challenge, which they're going to have as well, and turn it into an opportunity. And they'll experience the same results, which I'm experiencing. Shondell and I just had a happy anniversary of 26 years. We are growing together. I'm learning to be better at home, which has not been always the case, but I do feel like there's been a lot of improvement there. Shondell feels like there's been a lot of improvement there, and I feel a difference, and that's all that matters.
Chad, would you be willing to share with us, I guess, the idea of journaling? Do you do video journaling?
Yeah, I do both written and video journaling. I'll type a lot, but I do a lot of video journaling for my personal journaling for my posterity, and then I'll do public journaling as well. Some people call them vlogs. Others call them blogs. That's the written version, right? And so that's what I would call my journaling, is to have that and then be able to have my posterity look that up.
So you told us why you do that just now. Can you tell us like the how? Like, when do you schedule the time to do it? At what regular intervals do you do it? Do you do it weekly? Do you do it daily? Do you do it on special occasions? Because I think this is something that we could all learn from. Cory and I have talked. Neither one of us are really good at this.
So listen. So here's the key to that. So listen close. Consistency compounds. Remember, consistency. So that's why they tell you when you go on a diet, you're trying to break a habit, do it for 21 days, and then it's easy. Consistency always compounds. So I think the more frequent, and you set a time to do it, whether that's morning or sometimes we wait till later on the day, we don't do it. Those things, you have to prioritize it. And if journalizing, or how about this? There's a movie called Love Letters, where the gentleman writes his wife a note every day, but he doesn't necessarily give it to her every day, but she does find him in a stack one day and every day of his life, he writes her a note on a 3x5 card. Every day, every morning, writes her a note of whatever he's thinking that day and why he's grateful for her. And she goes and she starts reading them, and they're dated as well. Every single day, 365 days a year, and does it every morning as he wakes up. And that's the first thing he does when his feet hit the floor. And I think that daily keeps things in routine, especially when you're trying to kick something into habit. So I have the daily habit of waking up in the morning with purpose, passion, and perspective. And I'll do something right there for the family, and then I'll head out to the office after that. Part of that is reflection. Part of that is reading something inspirational. And part of that is leaving something for my posterity. Whether that's, and for Shondell, a written note that she won't see. And so I had to write that down as a reminder when I started. And now it's just part of my day. It's like showering or shaving or brushing my teeth. It's something that just comes to my mind. I have to get that note done. And then one day she'll pull those out and she'll see them. Every day has to happen.
Powerful.
When you're talking about family and trying to leave a legacy, more is better. More is much better. because then there's stories that they miss. And every day brings a new story. Every day brings a new adventure. Every day brings new feelings. And don't pretend to have them all be positive. It's great for your kids and your posterity to see that you went through some very challenging days. It's very good for my kids to know that dad fell out of his wheelchair and I just got upset and I didn't know how to react. And then I ended up, having 911 call, and I met some cool people that helped me. And so I went from being angry and upset and embarrassed to I met some new friends, and they helped fix my head and bandage it up. And I never would have met them had I not fallen out of my chair. Yes, it hurt, but I met some really cool people after that. And so it's good for them to read that and they'll relate that to their own life.
Chad, you talked about your prosperity in some of these vlogs. What are some of the things you're telling your prosperity? What are the things that you hope that your prosperity, maybe your great grandkids, what do they get from Chad Hymas?
Couple of things that are really important to me. Give without remembering, receive without ever forgetting who gave to you. So you give without remembering, otherwise you expect something in return. So as soon as you give something or help somebody or donate or lend, forget it. Otherwise you're waiting for that payment to be made back, and don't lend it out with expecting something in return. Then your relationships are going to be good. And then when someone gives something to you, you never forget. That way you're always in debt. You're always indebted to other people. So I want that to be remembered. This one's really crucial to me. I want the value of time. We talked about this briefly a few minutes ago about I was looking for a way to make money and make a living for my family. And since I've tried to find a way to contribute, the greatest thing that I can give to my kids is to show them how much I love their mother, especially in today's world, as we look at what's happening around the world, look at movements, the Black Lives Matter movement, the Blue Lives Matter movement, All Lives Matter. Well, look at my family. I mean, we're pretty diverse. I don't think God cares what color your skin is, what church you go to. Doesn't mean I don't go to church. I just don't think he's going to ask me what church I went to. I do think he's going to ask me, so what did you do with that time when you were stuck home for that long period? And I have to say, I didn't like it. And the two boys you gave me, they took me out to the ranch, the mountains, and they taught me some lessons that pierced me to the core, and I went home and I gave their mom a hug. I want my posterity to know that I'm going to love them no matter what the color of their skin, no matter what their gender preference is. That's a tough one for people right there, especially religious people, and I'm a religious person. I don't think that's not for us to judge. I think he cares. That's not for us to fight over. How do you guys feel when your kids fight and bicker? I don't like it either.
Yeah, you just want to stop it.
You're right. I can't help but think that he's weeping up there. And I've met people around the world that don't even call him God. In Thailand and Cambodia, they call him Buddha. In Afghanistan, they call him Allah. I've been to those places. I don't think he really cares. Some of those people are the most selfless disciples that I've ever met in my life, because they're willing to help and serve and give me whatever they have in their houses. Wait, I just deceived you guys. They're not houses, they're tin shacks. We wouldn't even have a shed like that. And I mean, most sheds we have, tough sheds, they're nicer than their homes. And then when I go into their tin sheds, they open up their whole fridge to me. Wait, I just deceived you again. It's a cooler. It's a cooler that you and I would take to the beach, but that's their fridge. I've never opened up my whole fridge to guests that come to our ranch. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind serving dinner up. I just don't open up the ice cream cabinet for them. I mean, these guys offer me everything they have. I think that's what God looks at.
You've got an interesting perspective on life, and one that I'm very grateful for. You've kind of touched my heart today with the stories of your sons, your adoptive kids, your wife. You've provided a lot of value to me today personally, and the conversation today I'm very grateful for. As we close the Gentleman Project podcast, we always ask our guests what they think it means to be a gentleman. And we found this to be a complex question, and it means something different to everybody. And when I think of a gentleman and the way that they act and the way that they think, you have exemplified that in every interaction I've had with you. So thank you for that. And I guess with that, you get to answer what you think it means to be a gentleman.
Surrender. A man, it's done his way, and that's the only way that it's done. A gentleman, they surrender. It doesn't have to be done their way. They surrender to the values they were taught as a kid. They surrender to their spouse's answer or their girlfriend's idea, even though their idea might be a better one. They surrender because they don't have to be right all the time. I think gentlemen, they don't just open up doors. They're not just respectful, but they surrender themselves to three things: to the needs, the fears, and also other people's victories before their own. They surrender to that. Needs, fears, and victories of other people. They surrender to that. And I think that's what a true gentleman is.
That's a great answer, not one that we've had. So I appreciate that. The thought of selflessness related to surrendering. That's a great answer. Thanks, Chad. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time today on the podcast. It's been fantastic.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Give our best to your family, to your kids and your beautiful wife. Join us next week. Everybody, make it a great week.
I'm Kirk Chugg.
And I'm Cory Moore.
We're with the Gentleman Project Podcast. We'll talk to you soon.